that was awesome. And that's, again, the reason why I find it so awesome. It's in my comfort zone.
Yeah, I knew.
It's just fun.
It's fun. It's fun pop punk. And what I like about this, what's called about Youth Fountain specifically, is that they've taken elements from the bands like Story So Far, and they've taken elements from bands like the old school Blink-182, old school, like Wonder Years beforehand, things like that. And they've really kind of made it into their own, but they still sound similar to these sort of genres. And they're not making anything new. They're not. I wouldn't say it's they've evolved pop punk in any sort of way, but they've executed it really, really well. And I think this is why I actively still listen to Youth Fountain, is because they're just a really strong pop punk band that's still creating good pop punk music.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the reason I love them so much. But I mean, for me, it just has, and it's the same with Story So Far, and it's the same with 4 Years Strong and stuff like that. For me, pop punk has to have the right sort of elements of, like, the pop punk sound, but also heavy music and energy. And I know that's not all pop punk. Like, that's not Blink-182. That's not Newfound Glory. That's none of that kind of stuff. But for me, modern pop punk has to have that heavy breakdown, but that catchy melody and that energy to it. And I think they kind of nail that. They really, really do. And it's a lot of emo influences. It's a very emo-y song. A lot of Taking Back Sunday in it. There's a lot of like Promise Ring in there as well. Stuff like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I'm curious to see what Jacopo thinks of this, to be honest, because
please go ahead.
We've gone from Lana Del Rey
to Youth
Fountain, which is they're just literally 2021 pop punk, or even 2020 pop punk. This is the new pop punk. This is the new style of pop punk. This is the style that is really catching on. And I wanted, before we move on to what Jacopo's thoughts are, I want to talk about how bands like Story So Far have influenced pop punk. Before this, you had that sort of really fast, attacky, kind of growly, kind of voicey still with pop punk. But this is almost like it's, I don't know if you've heard Machine Gun Kelly, like Bloody Valentine and Mod Sun and Youngblood. This has that vibe still. Yeah, Youngblood's great, and it has that vibe still, but it's still heavier in that sense. Still punk. It's more punky in that aspect, but the vocals are the same. I would say the vocals are almost exactly the same, pretty much. It's just got more of that instrumental power behind it, and that's why I personally would still always actively listen to bands like Youth Fountain or Story So Far over Youngblood or Machine Gun Kelly or Mod Sun, for example, because those sort of bands, those sort of artists don't really have the power behind it. There is still a lot of they're still going for it, but I wouldn't say it's not the mosh pit kind of style that I love. But yeah, Jacopo, over to you. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
So yeah, I wanted to jump in earlier when Ben was talking about the emo influences, because that's really something that I felt was Taking Back Sunday. So it's Taking Back Sunday with heavier guitars, basically, is how I sort of, with pop punky, like what you were saying, 4 Years Strong, Story So Far. I just have a really hard time with pop punk because I feel like it's already been done so many times, and I don't listen to any of these bands anymore. I listened to 4 Years Strong until maybe 18. So these are bands that I liked when I was younger. I thought they were fun, the energy and everything. I guess now I'm too much of a hipster, but it was a good song, don't get me wrong, and I understand the history, I understand why you all love it. I loved Blink-182 when I was younger again, but I don't think these hold up to other kinds of music. Like, there's just not enough innovation, not enough new stuff to me. I mean, you could take 4 Years Strong, take out the screams, turn down the overdrive a bit, get the guy from Taking Back Sunday or the guy from Jimmy World to write some lyrics and sing this song, and you have this song, So I have a hard time. Again, fun song, very well executed, catchy, good song. But it's just, it seems too obvious to me. I don't know what to tell you.
I think you're right. I think you're completely right. I wouldn't say it's not evolved. I think pop punk itself has evolved into this style, but I don't think it's evolved into anything unique in that sense. But saying that, I absolutely love. I can listen to this over and over because it's catchy. It reminds me of my days of listening to Taking Back Sunday, of listening to 4 Year Strong, and it's slightly different to that. I would say slightly different to that, and that's why I think I continue listening to this sort of style.
Yeah, no, I get that absolutely. I just wanted to quickly go back to what you were saying because you made quite a few points. I wanted to go to Machine Gun Kelly and Youngblood and those kinds of bands. So I thought that was very interesting, and I was very surprised when Travis Barker obviously went and played with Machine Gun Kelly, but there's this great channel on YouTube called the Punk Rock MBA.
Love it, mate. It's great.
He's so great, and he was talking about how Youngblood and Machine Gun Kelly and these kinds of artists are actually saved.
Future of pop punk one, isn't it? Is this the future of pop punk or something?
Exactly, and so they're really saving not just pop punk, but they're saving rock. Because even guys like Post Malone, who are essentially metalheads, and if they'd been born 10 years earlier, you'd probably see them, with Skrillex singing in bands like From First to Last and things like that. We were actually singing earlier amongst ourselves. But, then he kind of became this weird trip hoppy, environmental, and I mean, not environmental, I mean like ambient sort of soundscape sounds with the rap aspect. And that's kind of what Youngblood and Machine Gun Kelly do. Again, to me, it just sounds a little bit like, I don't know, it's too angsty and teeny for me now. I'm 27. Yeah. It's probably the aspect that I consider in that sense. And I think it's important to have people like Machine Gun Kelly keeping this going, and people like Youth Fountain really keeping this going with the OG style. But it's just not something that I think is progressing music particularly far.
Fair enough. So with that in mind, I would like to hear your rating, Jacopo.
So, see, I can give two different ratings. One in absolute terms and one as a pop punk song. As a pop punk song, if I compare it to all of these bands, I would rate it very, very highly because it's actually probably a band and a song that I would have loved when I was 15. When I was listening to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and stuff like that, and Jimmy Eat World and Taking Back Sunday, I would have loved this. So in those terms, probably an 8. As a song, considering the originality and everything, I'll rate it probably a 6. Because to me, them, the Wonder Years, and Mike's been trying to get me, and this is kind of the fight that we have. I get him to listen to Lana Del Rey, and he makes me listen to Youth Fountain and the Wonder Years and stuff like that, which are fun, but it's like, I don't know. So I'll give it a 6 in absolute terms.
Sounds good.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Mr.
fair enough.
Ashmore.
Over to me. Yeah, you know what? I love this song, but I have to respect what Jacopo says when it comes to pop punk. It's all been done before. But I do think with Youth Fountain there's a slight edge. I think but the problem is with Youth Fountain as well, they sound too much like Story So Far. And I love the Story So Far. They're great, but they are the Story So Far. There's no other band that sounds like Story So Far when it comes to pop punk. Jacopo might disagree because he might think it might sound like, Jimmy World or Blink-182, whatever it is. But maybe because I've been listening to pop punk for so long, I can tell when something slightly different to other pop punk. But in the genre of pop punk, these guys aren't new. I wouldn't say they are releasing anything special. But they've executed it really well, and a song that I really like, and it's catchy for me, and for some reason I keep listening to it over and over and over, and it's really annoying me, the fact that I still keep going back to this song. So for me, I will rate it a 7.5. The 0.5 probably would rate it a 7 if it wasn't for the fact that I keep listening to it all the time.
Fair enough. And for me, so my rating, look, I've discussed this before. I don't understand about riffs. I don't understand about singing. Don't understand about drums. I don't understand about production. I listen to stuff purely from an audio level. If I like the sound of it, I will listen to it. And I don't care if they sound like Story So Far, if they sound like Lana Del Rey, or if they sound like bloody Lordi. I don't care, right? So here it is, my unashamed twatty 8.3 out of 10. Thank you.
Nice.
No,
That's fair enough.
Fair, and I gave a similar reasoning, I guess, with Lana Del Rey, because it's also part of my music taste, and I think it's absolutely fair that you rate it highly. I'm trying to be as objective as I can with these things, and of course your personal opinion will always come into play and how much you like a song. When I talk about pop punk, or when I talk about things not being original, like the other band, what was it called, One Morning Left? Yeah. So it's just, I think if we're talking about also new music coming out and everything, there are so many bands that do things very well, but then the ones that get remembered are the ones that do something special. And this is a band that I see being here now, and maybe some people will still listen to this song 20 years down the line, but I don't see like Blink-182 entering the Gotha of great musicianship.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you know what? And I think you're completely right. If they don't change their sort of sound to go down into it and evolve into a new youth fountain sound in that sense, I think they won't be remembered. I think, don't get me wrong, they released a really good album, the one before, which was Letters to Our Former Selves in 2019. I think Ben actually introduced me to them. I remember you sent it to me and you went, this band are really cool. They're really cool. But realistically, they got lost in all the other pop punk albums I listened to. They're not. There's something you go, oh, this band are changing pop punk, or they're changing, rock for the better. Look at Neck Deep. Neck Deep did that. They did. If you look at the album, What Life's Not Out to Get You, for example, which got Jeremy McKinnon on it on the song. I can't remember what song it is, but one song he's got in it, and it was also partly produced by Mark Hoppus by Blink-182. And they knew, both Jeremy and also Mark probably knew, this band is going to be a big band. Let's make this into a new style of pop punk for people to listen to. And I remember going to watch A Day to Remember live, and underneath them and supporting them was Neck Deep, and a lot of people who went to go see Neck Deep. I mean, they've become a good big support band. Act. Yeah, exactly. And I think also, not only that, the Neck Deep have become now a band that redefined pop punk in the later, 2015 to 2020 sort of vibe, and the Story So Far too. So I would say, when it comes to changing pop punk, ever since the Newfound Glories, the Day to Remember, and then after that you had Neck Deep and Story So Far. It's now going away from that, and it's now going towards the Mod Sun, the Machine Gun Kelly, the Youngblood, etc.
I totally understand your points, and it's very interesting. But since you mentioned A Day to Remember, if I were, how old was I? Probably 14, 15 when I first listened to A Day to Remember. I don't think this would have had the same impact on pop punk that they did.
I actually disagree. I think if this came out in 2013, this would have been massive for me.
Massive, yes, but it wouldn't have been, I feel like bands like that, and We Came as Romans that we mentioned earlier, they came out, or Asking Alexandria. Like Asking Alexandria, when they first came out with their first album, right now it's escaping me the names, but I loved Asking Alexandria at the time.
Stand Up and Scream, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they came out and just did something so personal and new. And while they had elements, of course, of all that stuff that came out before, they completely changed music. And again, like, this is something that if you listen to bands like Hollywood Undead and Broken Side and things like that, which at the time I was slagging off,
Lol.
they've actually become this kind of blueprint for new music with people like Youngblood or Tekashi 6ix9ine, those kinds of rappers as well. They come directly from that, and even though it wasn't good at the time, it had an impact, in my opinion. Whereas this, like I said, and it's not to slag them off because I like it, but
yeah, fair enough, mate.
Sort of what I was saying to you guys about Oasis before as well. It's the same thing to me. Like, Oasis is just a slightly updated version of the Beatles, in my opinion, and this is just a slightly updated version of, Blink-182 or The Story So Far, and that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But then let's also be realistic here. I mean, this is a band that have a very niche following. It's, if you like pop punk and if you listen to pop punk, you will actively listen to this. But if you stumbled across it, you wouldn't think of it as being decent. And you can just see what the numbers are on, let's say, Spotify, for example. Rose Colored Glass was the leading single from their last album, which was Letters to Our Former Selves in 2019. And Ben, you introduced that to me, and that was the single, and everyone was like, oh, this is a really cool pop punk band. But they only had 1.5 million listens, and even now their latest song,
that is small.
It only had 100,000 listens, which, don't get me wrong, is good numbers in retrospect compared to some of the other bands we've listened to, but it's not like Story So Far, where they've had tens of millions of people listening to them, and they've changed that pop punk style. This is just another pop punk band that's doing the same thing as The Story So Far, or some other bands that I can probably roll off my tongue. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree.
Yeah, anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I think on the next episode, we'll have some great choices. Again, I'll have some...
I'm sure we will.
I'm interested to see Mike's reaction to, but we'll see how it
sounds good.
Are you going to finally introduce us Nick Cave?
I think so. No, today I wanted to pick two female bands, female-fronted band, like I said, and Lana. So Wolf Alice and Lana. I think next week I'm probably going to put the Horrors and Nick Cave, but I'm not entirely sure yet.
Interesting.
I wanted to change it when I was thinking about it earlier because of this connection that I see between Wolf Alice and the Horrors. But I thought Lana was a good choice for this episode.
It was a really good choice.
So well, it was great to see your faces. Anyway, I love you all.